What's up, Peter? How you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you too, George. You
Hey,
look much clearer and you sound much better.
Hey, Jr. Hey, Zach.
Hey, Brad.
Hey,
I'm
Brad.
George.
Hey, George.
George, Brad, whatever.
you're that George Perryman asshole? God damn.
We're live. Jeez. All right, let's promote it. Let's put it up on Facebook. All right, hold on a second. We have one viewer. Hello, one viewer.
One is the loneliest number that you.
I just got an email notification that we're live.
Yeah, I got the notification via the official YouTube app.
Yeah.
I was about to say between Brad, George's, and Peter's heads, I'm going to have to change to my sports glasses, which tint because it's just too bright for me.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I'm sure the brightness of our head is affecting your vision.
There you go. There you go, Jr. How's that? How's that?
I got the window minimized.
Zach's got the shades on.
Gosh, that's so funny. Zach.
His eyes.
All right, let me promote it out on our Facebook page. 1 second.
Bald men are sexy.
You know it, baby. Didn't mean to call you baby.
I mean, that's what I
didn't call
hear.
it.
I have no. I mean, I myself don't find bald men sexy. I'm just saying that the word on the street is yes, people.
Word on the street.
Are attracted.
Patrick Stewart made it cool. He kind of he made it okay.
I think it might have been Michael Jordan too. Maybe.
Oh, there's been many. Telly Savalas, Bruce Willis.
Yul Brynner.
Yeah.
I just never heard about bald being sexy until Patrick Stewart, and my wife talked about how attractive he was, and it's like, he's bald, right? But
dude, Yul Brynner had so many panties thrown at him, he could have started his own brand.
Gosh.
He could have he could have become a retailer.
Yul Brynner was pretty sculpted too.
Seven viewers. We haven't really started yet. We're kind of promoting that we're going live. For this,
it's really short notice.
It is. Yeah.
Like Brad's like lights the bad signal. And we're like, oh, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was playing Grand Theft Auto. Okay, if you're not familiar with this, right? There's a Grand Theft Auto 5 mod where people can play like it's an MMO, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's like a group of them called Family RP that I actually do this with, and I play. My current character is James Westfall, who is a pot dealer, caught in a rock in a hard place, like that kind of guy. Very compelling story. And so I'm playing him, and I'm doing my thing. And then Brad's like, dude, you want to get on for the Ditko Memorial? And I'm like, WTF, Ditko's dead? What?
Yeah.
And
basically, George and JR didn't hear this. Peter and Zach did. And now all 13 viewers will hear it. Basically, I thought when we do our intros, we'd say, welcome, JR. Give your one of your favorite Ditko memories. So if you guys want to think about that, like your favorite issue or something that just stands out to you, etc. And I was going to read some of the things I've shared on the Facebook page from the comic creators that are coming in.
I'm going to Twitter to get the.
Yeah, why don't you get the Twitter ones? I'll get the Facebook ones. And Chi-Town, you've got one from Jim Lee.
Yeah, there's one.
And I was going to read the Hollywood Reporter news article in the beginning.
The one that's full of typos.
And also has a Jack Kirby cover next to his face. Yeah.
Christ.
Amazing Fantasy 15 as inked by Steve Ditko.
Have we gotten any word from Stan Lee yet? Has there been a comment?
Yeah, we were just talking about that. Peter, did you see anything on his Twitter?
I didn't see anything on his Twitter yet.
I need to go out to YouTube and see the comments. I haven't been looking at them yet. Let's see here. Justin, what's up, man? We got Ryan, the Devil Breaker, and Vinkman. Welcome, guys. For those 14 people watching us right now, what I'm going to do in order to take live callers, I want you to post your email, and you'll get. We'll add you on the Google Hangout, and that will put you on the show. And Zach has offered to do that.
Yeah.
He kindly volunteered.
Yeah, I volunteered, but I volunteered as tribute, is what happened. Javi would like to join, so
Okay, he can be our first.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. All right, are we all ready, gang? You ready to start it?
I'm set.
Okay.
Again, I might have to pop in and out.
what she said.
No.
Oh, you know what? One thing I forgot.
We're doing like a memorial show, and Zach's doing dick jokes.
Yeah.
Ditko jokes.
Oh no. Let's get them all out. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Wait a minute. Who's this McNulty person?
I don't know. Fake Mike, Spectacular Mike, some guy.
But he's wanting to join in on the call.
Oh, he is. Okay.
You
Here.
want me to send him the link, Brad?
Sure. Yeah. If you've got it in front of you.
We'll let any riffraff in here.
Okay, I'm updating the YouTube live. There it is. Okay.
We're live here on YouTube.
Oh, that's not it. That's the embed code. Whoops.
Can't roller skate through the embed code. No, you can't roller skate through the embed code.
Anybody seen Ant-Man yet?
Oh, is that out already?
Yeah, it came out today.
No.
No, but Spencer, like I said, Spencer saw it tonight.
Did he like it?
He liked it. He said it. He said it was comparable to the other one.
Yeah.
He didn't. He didn't say, "Oh, it was awesome" or "great" or "better" or worse than the. He just said it was comparable. So.
Yeah. Oh, I hear it's very funny. So.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, let's get Mike in here, and then we will start. And we've got, since I last looked, we're up about 7-10 viewers. To the 20 viewers, if you'd like to join in the live caller portion, we're going to do one at a time, and we'll ask for your email, and then you'll get a link, and you'll get a link, and you'll click on it.
Yes, or just add me, clonesagachronicles@gmail.com. That's my email address. That would seem to be a little easier, and then I can send them the link and everything like that. Brad, will you post the link in the chat window for me, please?
Yeah.
I just sent Michael the link to join in.
Close. Where's the chat? Okay, I gotta blow my window up. There you go. There's the link.
I think I've got Javi. I don't.
Yeah, let's have Javi be our first.
Okay. I've sent him.
McNulty, where are you?
I sent him the link on Facebook.
Did he see that he read it?
I didn't see anything yet.
Here, I
Mike,
will.
check your Facebook.
Here, I've sent it to him on Gmail now.
It is ironic that the word came out the day of a new Marvel release.
Mm.
Yeah.
I don't think. Did he have anything to do with Ant-Man?
No.
I think he penciled maybe Ant-Man at one point. I could be wrong. JR, you're my Ant-Man expert. I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah, right. The thing is, Ant-Man was created. I mean, literally almost at the same time as Spidey, wasn't he? I mean, because didn't Peter refer to him when there's a headline? I was actually kind of.
Is Ant-Man the
second? Wondering
second?
that myself.
Is Ant-Man the second creation? Was it Fantastic Four, Ant-Man, then Hulk? I'm trying to think.
Might have been.
I know Ant-Man wasn't as popular. Because I don't even remember in the 60s him getting his own book. He was in Tales to Astonish in the split with the Hulk. The Hulk and who was the character before the Hulk in Tales to Astonish? YouTubers, help me out on that.
Right now, Steve Ditko is the number 2 trend in the world right now. So I've got that opened up.
Okay. Oh, there's Mike. Okay.
I've got So while we
Javi wants to know, is he checking Gmail? Hey, Mike. Okay, let's start. Hey, Mike. Basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna when I do the intro, we're gonna share our best memories of Steve Ditko, what issue or something that you really like. And Mike, can you turn on a light or a lamp if you don't mind?
Yeah. Let me go out for a second and get a lamp up. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
You look
You,
like
you are in witness protection.
I
you
know.
look like-
I gotta give.
You're like you don't.
Yeah,
be
I gotta go get. I gotta go get a lamp first.
Remember the good old days of this podcast where we would do it naked and in the dark?
No,
Or was that just
No.
what? That's horrifying.
so sorry?
especially now that we know what you look like.
Oh, well, speak for yourself. Um,
You're not wearing pants. That's okay.
George, I like your Spider-Man behind you. It looks like he's getting ready to haul off and hit somebody in the face.
Yeah, he's getting ready to hit all of you for like talking this way on a memorial show.
We haven't technically. Well, I guess we have started, but
Oh my lord!
yeah, let's tone it down for the memorial. I mean, we can be.
Do I need
Body,
to? Do I need to go get a black shirt and
No, you're fine.
be like in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost?
Wow.
Man.
He was a crotchety old man,
Oh my gosh.
and you got the door open behind you. Up.
What?
I can relate to that.
Oh, there you are. Hi. Say hello to everybody.
Hi, Ava.
She can't hear you. But oh, they're waving at you. You want to say something to them?
Hi.
Do you like Spider-Man?
No.
I didn't think so.
Get your house in order, Douglas.
Who's your favorite superhero? Wonder Woman. Okay.
Well, okay. That's
Eh,
What about Spider-Girl? Nah. Yeah. Marvel, are you listening? She doesn't know really who Spider-Girl
Let me
is.
ask, does your dad read to you, or do you have to read to your dad?
She can't hear you.
legitimate
JR?
question. Actually, a legitimate question.
raise your hand if you read for a living.
Not anymore.
Can
Uh,
so I look okay right now?
Yes, you look much better. I can actually see you.
Good. Okay.
Hi, sweetie. I love you.
I was thinking more marginally better, but yeah.
Oh, thank you for the moose.
Yeah,
so much.
I know.
Okay. All right. Let's go. 23 YouTubers. Are you ready? We're getting ready. Okay. I'm going to come down. I'm going to introduce to everybody. We got Javi ready?
No.
All right. By the time we get done with this intro, Javi will be ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Coming down. 3, 2. Hey, Crawl Spacers. Welcome to a memorial podcast. We've never done one of these, I don't think. We just got news that Steve Ditko passed away. And as Zach says, I shined the spider symbol up in the sky and I gathered the troops to do an impromptu memorial podcast on the day of Steve Ditko when he passed. So let's introduce our panel. We've got Zach. Zach was the first one that said, yeah, I'm game to do it. So Zach, thank you for
Well,
Randy, come on.
it was one of those bizarre moments. I got home tonight from dinner, and my roommate mentioned it, and I went, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So then I texted Brad shortly thereafter and said, I'm Ditko's dead. What?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a shock to all of us.
Yeah.
We'll get more into the details of what happened here
Right.
shortly, but a big significant loss
Mhm.
in terms of a guy with a legacy that is sort of complicated.
It's very complicated. Very
Mhm.
complicated.
Um,
Actually, I'll introduce the panel, and you guys can talk about how you heard the news, and then we'll go around and talk about some of your favorite Ditko stuff. I heard the news. Our former panelist, Josh Bertoni, sent me a text, and that's how I heard. I had no idea that he had passed, and then I went out and read the Hollywood Reporter article, and I'll read that shortly after we get the intros done. But just a shock, especially how he was discovered dead. So it's
Mhm.
just crazy. So Mike, welcome. Thank you for coming on last minute for the
Yeah.
podcast. How did you
Mhm.
find out Steve passed?
Well, part of the thing for what I work at Bamsmack Pal, we have like a kind of like almost like a feed, not quite of a Discord feed, but like little things where little notifications pop up. And one of the things that one of the folks that one of our guys says, "Hey, did you hear about this?" And he posted a notice from the Hollywood Reporter article about Steve Ditko passing away.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, Yeah, I was like in shock, like everybody else, is because it's like, first of all, I didn't even know how old Steve Ditko was at the time.
Yeah.
Kept finding in '90, and also which I'm sure you're going to get into. There's almost like it's not quite mysterious circumstances, but just the way in which the circumstances surrounding the death, essentially, which was like, which kind of almost seems a little bit. I know it sounds a little bit morbid to say, but it almost seems in character with the man himself, essentially, and how the guy is
the mystery and
the mystery around him. Yeah, exactly. So it was one of these things where, just in terms of like a Steve Ditko, I think I don't think it cannot be emphasized enough, just the influence that he had as a comic book artist as a whole, and and just how he kind of like, and I think in some respects, will go down as probably one of the most, important comic book artists of all time, without question.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The JR is also on the line. JR, how did you find out?
Well, it's I picked Spencer up from the movies. He'd gone out to the movies with his girlfriend, and we dropped her off, and he wanted to get something to eat. And so I'm about to go through the drive-thru at McDonald's, and then I just, and of course, he's 16, so he's constantly plugged in everywhere,
He's on his phone.
Yeah, and then I hear he said, "Hey, Steve Ditko died," and I went, no expletive, and and he said, yeah, he said apparently it was just announced 2 hours ago or something like that. So yeah, that's when I found out. But before I forget this, because I know we're going, but I just flipping through, and Walt Simonson on his Twitter says Steve Ditko has caught the last web out across the city into the Mystic.
Oh,
so anyway,
that's really nice.
Before I forgot that one.
And JR also, once he heard that from Spencer, he suspected a text message was coming his way, and
yes,
indeed it did.
It did. I told Spencer, I said, I have a feeling I'm going to get a text. We're going to do a special show, and sure enough, literally about a minute later, bing, there it was.
There I am. Yeah. We have George. What's going on, George? Man, how did you find out?
I was playing a video game, and you texted me.
That I was the breaking source for you, huh?
Yep.
What went through your mind when you heard this?
Well, I mean, you were like, do you want to get on, to take live callers for the Ditko Memorial? And I was like, what, Ditko's dead? I mean, that was literally what was going through my head. I was like, oh God. So I looked on the internet and it was like, oh, sure enough, Steve Ditko has passed away.
And also, Chi-Town Spidey's on the lines. How did you find out?
I looked at Facebook and actually on the Crawlspace Facebook that saw it, and at first I thought, "Is this real? Or is this just like a hoax or something like that?"
Right.
And I googled them, and there was like a couple of news broadcasts that
Hollywood Reporter and Variety, both are reporting it. I'll read a little bit of the Hollywood Reporter, which was the first site that I saw.
TMZ as well.
TMZ. I don't know who was the first to break it, but Hollywood.
Probably, honestly, of those, probably TMZ, just because they usually scour the death certificates.
Oof.
I know that's
how morbid. Well, let me read some quotes from the Hollywood Reporter. Let's see. Artist Steve Ditko, who co-created Spider-Man Doctor Strange with Stan Lee, has died at age 90. The New York Police Department confirmed his death to the Hollywood Reporter. No cause of death was announced. Ditko was found in his apartment on June 29th. Was found dead in his apartment on June 29th, and he is believed to have died about 2 days earlier. Then
okay, so TMZ is a little bit more detailed.
Read what you got in front of you for TMZ.
All right. The man who helped Stan Lee create two legendary Marvel superheroes, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, has died in his home in New York, TMZ has learned. Steve Ditko was found unresponsive in his New York City apartment on June 29th when a social worker who hadn't heard from him in a while went to Steve's home to check on him, according to law enforcement. The chief medical examiner listed the cause of death as an atherosclerotic and hypertensive cardiovascular disease.
Let me look this up.
We are not a medical podcast.
We are not.
Basically, it sounds like heart attack is what.
Basically, a heart attack caused.
Arteriosclerosis is a chronic disease characterized by
arteriosclerosis.
There you go, sorry. A chronic disease characterized by abnormal thickening and hardening of the arterial walls with resulting loss of elasticity.
We used to just call it hardening of the arteries.
He had a heart attack, everybody.
He had a heart attack. It's a cardiac
clogged arteries.
Sorry, go ahead.
Ditko was basically a heart attack brought on by clogged arteries. Ditko was one of the most acclaimed comic book artists of all time, best known for creating Spider-Man with Lee in '62 and Doctor Strange a year later. The stories they crafted together inspired 2016's Doctor Strange film, starring Benedict Cumberbatch. While Stan became the face and the, quote, godfather of comic books, end quote, to the public, Steve remained enigmatic over the years, refusing.
You don't get to ever make fun of the way Brad reads. I won't allow it after tonight.
Refusing to do interviews or make public appearances. He continued to work at a Manhattan studio, though, at least until 2012. Steve was 90. Rest in peace.
So I thought we would also read some comic creators that have chimed in. I've been sharing them on the Facebook page in the crawl space. Chris Claremont wrote one. He goes, "This is one of those yin-yang moments. On the one hand, a lovely summer day complete with happy words about Marvel's latest cool film. On the other, the news just now, the passing of Steve Ditko at age 90. There's a lot that will hopefully be said by those who knew him far longer and better than I. Actually, I think I only had a passing encounter with him. All I really knew was what I read in the pages of Spider-Man, but that was enough to make me devote for life. He was a unique talent in our industry and also one who refused to follow any path but his own. Whatever the consequences, it seemed he was most determined to be true to himself. Would that more of us had such courage. Wherever you are now, Steve, may you find joy and fulfillment, and may a certain Queens-dwelling wall crawler forever watch your back as your pen helps guide him to all new and even more exciting adventures, especially now that bow ties are back in vogue." That was Chris Claremont. Let me read another one. Brian Michael Bendis. "I spoke to Steve Ditko on the phone once. I talked about it often. I got to thank him for creating Spider-Man and putting food on my table. I hope he really heard me." That was Brian Michael Bendis.
So I'm gonna read. I'm trying to go through the Steve Ditko mentions on Twitter.
Yeah.
And the first celebrity that popped up on this was 13 minutes ago. Gene Simmons posted. R.I.P. Steve Ditko, who just passed at 90. Ditko's Doctor Strange was directly responsible for inspiring my hand gesture. Steve also co-created Spider-Man, Blue Beetle, The Question, The Creeper, Captain Atom, and many more. He made my childhood magical. We honor you, Steve Ditko.
Tom Lyle, who was an artist on Web of Spider-Man in the 90s during the Clone Saga.
Adjectiveless.
I'm sorry. That was the Stephen Butler I was thinking of. Tom Lyle was on Adjectiveless.
Yep.
He wrote, "His work on Spider-Man was a huge influence on me. I knew this day would come, but his passing is super sad." That was Tom Lyle. We also have, this one I like a lot. JMD Mateus wrote on Facebook. He says, quote, "Seems like a good time to share the story of the one time I met Steve Ditko. Steve Ditko was the visionary creator who pushed, some might say shattered, the boundaries of the 60s mainstream comics with his work on Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. I can't think of another artist of the era, aside from the king of all boundary shatterers, Jack Kirby, whose work was more revolutionary and influential. Ditko illustrated a couple of my early stories, including a Legion of Superheroes issue that's considered one of the worst Legion tales of all time. That was my fault, not Steve's. Back when I was starting out at DC Comics, and one day when I wandered into the office of editor Jack C. Harris, there was the legend himself, an unassuming middle-aged man dropping off his latest batch of pages. Ditko is notoriously reclusive, the J.D. Salinger of comic books, so I was delighted and perhaps a bit awed to be standing in the same room with him, making very small talk. Now, imagine my excitement when I discovered that Ditko was leaving the office at the same time I was, and we hopped in the elevator, walked out of the building together, and headed off side by side in the same direction. We talked a little, perhaps about the story we just worked on, and I can't say for sure. And the 12-year-old inside me was doing cartwheels. Me and Steve Ditko strolling down the avenue and chatting, question mark. By the crimson bands of Sidrock, I was in comic book heaven. I didn't stay there long. We'd gone perhaps half a block when I said something to the effect of, do you think you're ever going to go back and draw Spider-Man again? In my defense, I don't think I realized that the subject of Spidey, of Ditko's Marvel work in general, was verboten. But I found out soon enough. Within seconds of opening my ignorant mouth, Ditko wished me a good day, crossed the street, and vanished into the crowd. I felt like an idiot, but a lucky one. I had my moment, however brief, with the elusive legend, and all these years later, I still treasure it. I think that's one of my favorite posts I've read so far.
Mm-hmm.
So
go ahead.
We got one from Jim Lee.
Okay, let's hear from Jim Lee.
Jim Lee says, sad to hear of the passing of the legendary artist and creator Steve Ditko. Beloved for generations, his work was quirky and quirky mastery and helped provide early visual vocabulary and counterpart to Kirby's power and influence. Of course, he is best known for co-creating Spider-Man, but we also ushered in a slew of unique, very personal electric characters for DC, such as The Question, Blue Beetle, Hawk and Dove, and more. I only met him once back in the hallways of Marvel when I worked there. Polite and unassuming, he never sought attention of the limelight, but in many ways represented the hidden hero he saw in all of us.
The one of my favorite podcasters is John Suntress, who does the Word Balloon podcast. Mm-hmm. He has a really unique quote on his Facebook. It says, quote, as sad as we all are, if there's a heaven or hell, Ditko is seething at the public outcry that will follow his passing. Steve Ditko hated the cult of personality and was yelling about it decades before the internet. George, you're shaking your head on that one. You agree? He would hate this.
I'm not sure. I'm nodding my head. I'm agreeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, shaking your head in agreement. I meant to say, yeah. You agree that Ditko would hate the public outcry of love for him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is that? I mean,
yeah, it absolutely just. I mean, this is a guy that never sought the limelight. I mean, like you could be a fan, right? And he'd be like, well, like you could write into him, and he would write you back saying, hey, thanks. I'm glad you like the work. Mm-hmm. But that's to him. That's all it was. It was just what he did for a living.
Right. It was for him.
Yeah. It wasn't anything really. I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't really anything he was passionate about.
Right. Yeah. For him, it was just like, he just like that, let the work speak for itself kind of thing. And just,
it wasn't, he wasn't like a self-aggrandizer. He's like the polar opposite of Stan Lee.
Yes.
But no, that's not saying anything bad about Stan Lee. Marvel desperately needed somebody to be Stan Lee, and Stan Lee was like, I'll be Stan Lee. Yeah.
It's peanut butter and chocolate. You put them together, it's perfection.
I mean, but he was the polar opposite of Stan Lee, where he's not going to talk about himself. You know, I mean, he's not going to talk at all. He's just like, here, I drew some shit. Bam, go. I'm going home and getting a sandwich.
He's the type of guy that says, I did my job. That's it.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny and well, ironic, because just a few days ago, Harlan Ellison passed away.
Yeah.
And Harlan was another. I mean, you were talking about if Steve went to heaven or hell or whatever. Harlan was another, just one of those artists who just definitely danced to his own drummer. So
I saw Harlan live in Chicago at least a couple times. There is so much energy in that little bitty body. I mean, he is boisterous. He was boisterous, loud, and boy, he hated that Star Trek episode that everybody loves. That he wrote.
I think when it comes to the afterlife, like Harlan Ellison got into limbo, and like heaven and hell were both kind of looking at one another saying, we don't know what the hell to do with this guy. I don't know that we really have a play. I mean, he was cool. Don't get me wrong. I like Harlan Ellison, but he was definitely an individual.
Yeah.
So Jason Aaron, the writer of Thor,
from Kansas City, Missouri,
says, I would have given anything to have lived inside Steve Ditko's head for a day. And he got to do it for 90 years. We were all just lucky to be able to enjoy the fruits of his beautiful weirdness. Thank you for always being you, Mr. Ditko. Rest in peace.
See, and that's a nice tribute, but you know, when he's talking about, you know, being his head, I guarantee you most of the talent today, the writers and the artists would absolutely loathe being in Steve Ditko's head
Yeah.
because Steve Ditko was not on the same wavelength.
Oh no. Oh no.
You know, to
That's
talk a
right.
bit about this,
at all.
do you think,
No.
and we don't know him personally, we know him from news articles, we know him from his work.
Mhm.
Do you think the man was happy?
You hope
No.
so.
That's the thing. We
No,
don't really,
but
we can't really see inside his mind, though. That's the
No,
thing.
I
No.
could.
Go
I
ahead,
don't-
George.
No, but I don't think he was miserable. I think he, as like an Ayn Rand kind of follower, found like a neutral ground where it's almost like Buddhism,
Yes.
Mhm.
where he's just like he's almost like an ascended master of just not giving a damn,
Mhm.
and just worrying about his own crap. And he probably was not deliriously happy, probably was not deliriously low, was probably just here.
Can you imagine the dude walking out of his New York apartment and seeing Spider-Man everywhere?
Well, see, that's the thing, though, Brad. I mean, and he proved this. I mean, sometimes, and we would see where he'd written to people, and he would tell them exactly, this is a job I had.
Mhm.
Look, I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you dig it. It means nothing to me other than it's a thing I did.
Right. Yeah. The impression I got, what you get from his work, from his writings and everything else, it's almost like once he created the work and his character and set it out to the world, that was it. Because as far as he was concerned, he already kind of formulated the idea and everything like this. It's already out in the world.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on to the next thing.
I get the feeling that if there was one character he probably would have talked about the most, it would have been like, what was it, Mr. A?
Mr. A.
I think he probably would have
that's
been. I think he probably would have been willing to talk about Mr. A more than anything else.
Mhm.
But I think like the only two people who want to talk about Mr. A are like Alan Moore and Rich Scott.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Neil, speaking of Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman posted on
Okay.
several tweets on Twitter, and I've
Yep.
also got a former Coral Space panelist sent me a message that so Neil Gaiman says, without Steve Ditko, there would be no Spider-Man, no Doctor Strange, no Creeper, no Hawk and Dove, none of the black and white reprint comics he read in seaside resorts as a boy. No, The Question, which means no Rorschach, no Mr. A, no mystery. I had heard rumors and hoped they were not true. Thank you, Steve Ditko, for making my childhood weirder, and thank you at Wosi for taking me with you when we went in search of Steve Ditko and found him. A kind man who gave me comics. Steve Ditko was true to his own ideals. He saw things his own way, and he gave us ways of seeing that were unique, often copied, never equaled. I know I'm a different person because he was in the world. Jerry Ordway then shared a really beautiful ink and wash page from Eerie Magazine. Ditko was a giant, and his work was a big part of his life. And one thing that Josh Bertoni, you mentioned him earlier, Brad, he texted me. He said, don't forget that he's also designed the classic red and yellow version of Iron Man's costume.
Oh,
Every time we see
why didn't I know that? That's awesome.
every time we see an MCU film, we are seeing Ditko. He's created so much more than just Spidey and Strange. So that's a good point.
Yeah.
Something I didn't know.
Well, there's
ahead,
a lot of characters that I'm kind of surprised by. I mean, I knew some about, like, of course, the Questioner thing, but I mean, when he mentions Squirrel Girl, for instance, I didn't know he was behind that as well. And then look how big
Speedball, yes.
Speedball, which I mean, on all this stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, all these different characters and everything, you just don't all you don't realize just how much how much influence he did have,
And he
not
didn't-
just kind of creep in, and he didn't boast about it.
And he didn't
That's it.
create the character, but I mean, he did a lot of work on like ROM back in the day, Brad.
Yeah.
He did ROM and
G-Man.
also the last couple issues of the original Hulk, like issue 4, 5, 6, I think, after Kirby left.
Mhm.
So he was one of the first ones to do the Hulk. The question I want to ask the YouTubers watching us, and also the ones that haven't answered the question on the panel, which I think are Chi-Town and JR, was Steve Ditko happy? JR, was he happy? What's your opinion? I mean, he was he was in an apartment for 2 days with no family.
Yeah, it's ironic. I mean, you're asking me. It's like you're asking me a question like my wife asks a lot of questions that I simply cannot answer. I do not have the answer, and don't even really have a basis for. I mean, to be absolutely honest, I have absolutely no basis or way to accurately or honestly answer that question.
Yeah.
Because he really gave no hint. I mean, he gave no hint
None.
of his state whatsoever.
Here's the thing. I mean, most people who are miserable don't usually live to be 90.
True.
Very few of them live to be 90.
True.
This, like I said, I mean, like, we don't have much to go on, but this dude was probably fine living alone.
You know,
Without a doubt, I agree.
Yeah.
There, yeah.
he answered fan mail, and he wrote back to people. I mean, so I think he knew how much he was loved, but did he embrace that?
No. I mean,
I don't
you know,
think
it's
so.
funny.
No.
Anytime, I mean, Steve Ditko seemed, for all the people who like tried to communicate with him, and he would always send them like a weird, you know, you could ask him the time of day and you would get some Ayn Randian type response.
Yeah.
I think if you were to ask if he was happy, he would give you some long, bizarre.
What is happiness?
Yeah, exactly. What is happiness? Who defines it? You know, is it a relative or absolute term? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, who knows? Maybe he didn't even. Maybe it wasn't in his vocabulary. That didn't mean he was miserable, but just maybe it wasn't in his vocabulary.
And
Yeah.
Brad, think back for a minute, because you keep asking these subjective questions that we really can't answer. But you're asking like, oh, he knew people loved him and everything. He did. Think back to what you yourself have read in the Untold Story of Marvel about like the first real comic conventions that started popping up, and
He was shocked.
one of them was in New York, and Ditko walked in, and Ditko's reaction was basically like, "Why?
Exactly. Why are you here?
Why? What
Yeah.
the hell? What, you know?" So I mean, yeah, really, I mean, it kind of answered this. This dude didn't care.
It was a job to him. That's basically what it was. It was when he created these characters or co-created these characters, it was only a job to him.
Yeah.
And he acknowledged fans when they wrote to him, but basically he was very polite. According to all these tweets and things that I'm reading, that he was very polite, but he also said, "Okay, I acknowledge you. Leave me alone." I think he was just happy just being alone and just being who he is. And I mean, he drew these characters, and that was it. And like that was his job. And then if he's seen Spider-Man all over the place, I know he had some tussles going on with Stan Lee from what we've read and stuff, but I think it's
My understanding, though, is that Stan and Steve kind of had a
falling out, or like,
not just. I think they had a little bit of a reconciliation at Kirby's funeral. My recollection. I may be wrong on that. But yeah. So I've just got. I'm going to read a couple more tweets, Brad, if that's cool.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a couple more. Go ahead.
All right, Joe Quesada, our favorite guy. Only a small group of individuals can claim they have affected and redefined not just an industry, but popular culture worldwide. Steve Ditko was one of those few who dared to break molds every time his pencil and pen hit a blank sheet of paper. Edgar Wright, the director of, or was going to be the director of
Ant-Man.
Ironically enough, since it's the day of Ant-Man, we're recording this the day of Ant-Man and the Wasp came out. R.I.P. to great comic book legend Steve Ditko, beyond influential on countless planes of existence. He never truly profited from his comic creations that have lasted for decades. I don't know if that's true or not. But
you know what, though? Here's the thing. More than probably any other, I'm not going to say that, but definitely more than maybe Kirby's family, for example. This dude understood work for hire.
Yeah.
I mean, Ditko absolutely understood work for hire. I am working for you. I don't own this. I mean, he understood it, whereas others would later be like, they understood it, but then they weren't okay with it.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. But Ditko was never like that. Ditko was like, "Oh, I'm gonna sue you, Stan Lee, for half a spider." No. Ditko was like,
Ditko accepted work up into the early 90s. He was drawing Chuck Norris comics for Marvel.
Yeah.
He drew WWF comics.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was thinking about it.
It was a job to him, man.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, I think he was. I think though credit was must have been very important to him, because and maybe not so much the money, but like when Steve, I think when Stan was finally grudgingly had to admit that Steve was a co-creator, and Steve had this things like, what is creation, and then like he had the panel Steve Ditko's Spider-Man, and of course there was Spider-Man, and then Stan Lee's Spider-Man. And there was just blank, implying that, one of his things was always implying that without the artist, there is no creation. So it did seem that if not fame, fortune, or adulation was important, it did seem that credit and acknowledgement of some form was. And that, I guess, one of the reasons for the rift is he didn't feel between him and Stan is he didn't feel he was getting credit, enough credit. But that relationship was fraught with a lot of problems. But then, Stan was a person who didn't manage people well, period. No. So, the Steve Ditko is just one of many people that probably didn't like his relationship with Stan.
Well, Stan was a good publisher, but maybe not necessarily a good manager of people. But at the same time, I mean, and I'll probably get heat for this. Don't really care. But
when have you ever cared?
I mean, think about it though. Think of the egos even that we see today among writers and artists. It's impossible to keep those kind of people, especially that big of a group of those type of individuals, happy. It must be like trying to like herd cats.
Yeah.
I mean, it just must be maddening. I have so much respect for Stan and for like Jim Shooter for even, attempting it. I mean, it really must be just one of the most maddening things ever. Yeah. I mean, you're just surrounded by prima donnas.
But Jim Owsley in his infamous / Christopher Priest in his excellent article of Why I Don't Talk About Spider-Man, he said that artists, if you ask them to change something, or if you say that you don't like something, they don't hear that. They hear, I hate you, I hate your work, I hate your family, I hope you burn in hell.
Harlan Ellison was very much
and just even asking why Peter Parker's head was flat instead of round, just would infuriate Ron Friends. So I don't know.
There was a lot of things that infuriated Ron Friends. Let me tell you, you want to get him talking,
and we like Ron Friends. We're not saying anything bad about Ron Friends.
No. He was just used by Owsley as an example.
We're just talking about passionate creative types.
I wanted to jump in one last thing. Brian Otley, it popped up on Twitter. Just heard Steve Ditko passed away. His creation was my first introduction to comics. My first dream job character. I hope to do his creation justice. Ironically enough, he will be doing that in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 5, number 1 next week.
Ryan Otley. Okay, the new artist.
Yeah.
I've got a couple, and then we're going to take live callers. We promised to do live callers. We're going to do that. Eric Larson, the penciler in Amazing Spider-Man from the 90s, also Savage Dragon. Quote, sorry to hear about the passing of Steve Ditko. I met him once and collaborated with him on one job. He was a big influence. I was a huge fan of his work. He will forever be the definitive artist on Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, with tremendous talent. Paul Dini, who was the producer on the Batman animated series?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. He shared a picture of the first appearance of Squirrel Girl, where the squirrels are eating Dr. Doom's armor. And he says, for this panel,
Iron Man.
What?
Oh well.
I'm sorry, it's Dr. Doom's armor is the image with squirrels all over it. And Paul Dini says, for this panel alone, Steve Ditko went immediately to the comic book heaven. Rest in peace. That was pretty good. Brad Meltzer is a popular novelist, and he wrote, Steve Ditko gave us all bigger and better dreams, ones I still try to live by every day. Spider-Man, The Question, Doctor Strange, they were all him and us, especially on those days when we needed his creations the most. And Fred Hembeck, who I've always been a fan of.
Yeah.
Remember that Peter Parker Spec 86 issue, the Assistant Editor's Day?
Yep.
Fill in with the Black Cat. Fred Hembeck, quote, Steve Ditko, I was lucky enough to encounter his work at an early age, right at the dawning of the Marvel Age of Comics, and to say it made an impression on me would be an understatement. He was and is my favorite cartoonist, and as skilled as he was with all the dramatic stuff, Spider-Man trapped under all that wreckage, most famously, my favorite single Marvel comic is Amazing Spider-Man 25, in which our hero battles a robotic J. Jonah Jameson, a story both exciting and hilarious, showing a comedic side of Mr. Ditko I would have loved to have seen much more of. When I read of his departure from Marvel in the bullpen bulletins back in the 60s, it landed like a punch in the gut. I'm not sure I ever totally got over it. Well, he's really and truly gone now, but he's left us so much Wonderful work that will be admired for generations to come. That's got to be some consultation. Consolation. I'm sorry.
Right.
Thank you, Steve, is what he wrote.
So,
Okay.
one last thing. I just saw this on Twitter, and I wanted to. It was because it's from Steve Ditko's own hand.
Oh.
It said these were 2 letters that he wrote. He says, "Dear Nick, I'm glad you enjoyed those Spider-Man stories. I quit doing Spider-Man in the late 1960s, and I have never done any more Spider-Man art since then. So I can't do any commissions. Thanks for asking."
The Devil Breaker on YouTube says to check Jerry Conway's Twitter. Okay, hold on.
Here, I got it.
I got something from Paul D. No, you already read that down.
I read that one. Here, I got Conway coming up.
You got him?
Here we go. In my mind, this book contains the pinnacle of Ditko's work on Spider-Man, which is Marvel Masterworks Volume 4, Spider-Man 31 to 40. Let's see. Conway also wrote, "Sad news, I only met Ditko once. Though he drew several of my scripts, a quiet guy, he seemed more distant than intense. Wish he'd found more joy as a creator to equal the joy he gave me as a fan. What an amazing, incomparable talent." That was a good quote.
That's one thing that was interesting, looking over the Hollywood Reporter article where they talk about there's a couple paragraphs where the Greg Weik of Beyond Comics TV, how he's talked about. He says it struck up a friendship with Ditko over the last year of his life, and would visit him in his Manhattan office, where he would find the legendary creator well dressed and sporting a beret as though he had stepped out of the 1940s. Ditko continued to work on his own creations, though he didn't share the details of them with Weik, who recalls Ditko seeming younger than his years. Quote, "He wasn't 90. He seemed like a young, cool artist who happened to have an aged body." And he says recalls asking Ditko about his relation with Lee, and says the artist looked down and told him, "We're peaceful." When Welk learned of Ditko's death, when he went to visit him on Friday, the security guard informed him of the artist's passing. The security guard told him that Weik was one of the few people over the past 4 years the artist had allowed up into his office.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Mm-hmm.
That's significant.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just again, go back to the guy, how he's
No, stay down here for me, okay?
What
individuals and everything. I
Brad.
mean, just
Brad forgetting to mute his mic.
yeah.
So you can hear his conversation.
Okay.
Oh yeah. But
you forgot to mute, Douglas. Good job.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
All right.
Yeah, but yeah, it just goes to show that one. I mean, how that he was willing to let that guy up and everything into his office like that, and even when he's so reclusive and stuff, it just kind of.
I mean, when you look at the elderly in general, I mean, a lot of times they just are looking for somebody to talk to, and so many times we see people alone. That they don't have anybody to, their families have moved away or they've passed away or they're like Ditko or recluse. And so it's nice to hear that he had somebody at least that was checking on him.
A social worker.
Honestly, I doubt he.
No, another fellow comic book artist. Sadly.
I doubt he was lonely. I'm pretty sure Ditko was A-okay with being completely 100% alone.
Right, because there's a difference between being alone, wanting to be alone and solitude.
That's right.
I think he craved solitude, is what he did.
Yeah,
and solitude is not necessarily a loneliness. It's just
no. And I think
that just seems so foreign to me. What, George? Do you think it's foreign? I mean,
no, hell no. God, if I was 90, I wouldn't want to talk to anybody. Are you kidding me? Good Lord, no. I don't even like leaving the apartment now, Jack.
He barely talks to us as it is.
I mean, really, like if you want me to like come visit you, like free food, pretty much is like, hey George, we got a brisket. Okay, I'll stop by.
hey.
Right? I mean, like, yeah, I'll make an effort.
If only someone offered him a brisket,
I text George, hey, I'm coming through town. You want to go to El Phoenix? Yes, that's the only way I see George.
Yeah, I mean, like if Zach was like, hey, do you want to meet up at a park and just talk to one another and look at ducks? I'd be like, yeah, I think I'm just going to stay here in the AC.
How about if we eat duck? Avi, welcome. You're our first caller. What's up, man?
Not a whole lot, Brad. How you doing?
I'm good,
we're
man.
mobile. Javi's gonna like give us a tour of
Javi,
the.
no doubt. Hey, Javi, how did you learn about Steve Ditko's passing? Talk to me about that a little bit.
Through the site,
Okay.
through the crawl space. I was checking Facebook as I was leaving work today, and just did a quick check to see what updates there were, and saw a bazillion links notifications. So, I'm still kind of processing everything.
What's your thoughts of your favorite Ditko memory, or what do you remember the first time you saw his art?
The first issue of any comic that I can remember ever is the Marvel Tales reprint of Amazing #5.
Mm-hmm.
And that
With Dr. Doom.
Yeah, with Dr. Doom, and that's what hooked me. I mean, it had the Fantastic Four in it. There were 2 Spider-Men in it. It had Flash being a bully, Peter taking it all in stride, and doing the right thing, but not getting the proper recognition for it. And that just kind of charted the course for me.
Javi, you and I think are about the same age. I'm 43. How old are you?
I just turned 41 2 weeks ago.
So you and I were the age range when those Marvel Tales were being reprinted in the 80s.
Yes.
The first Ditko, like Marvel Tales 137, I think was Amazing Fantasy 15's.
Yeah, that's what my dad would buy me. He wouldn't buy me Amazing, the current issues. He would buy me Marvel Tales because that's what he grew up reading.
As a kid, did you know it was a reprint? Because I didn't know it was a reprint.
I don't think I did. I don't think I really had understanding, because especially jumping in where I did, it was the 5th issue.
Yeah.
And I got everyone after that. So that was just the beginning of Spider-Man.
Exactly. I just thought it was a new version of Spider-Man. It was telling his history for the first time. So it was kind of nice as a young kid to be introduced, an 80s kid introduced to what 60s kids had back in the day.
I mean, he was 20 years old at that point, but to me, I felt like I was in on the ground level.
Yeah.
And
so, some of the other panelists, were you introduced to Ditko through Marvel Tales also, or?
Actually, it was through. I think it was actually through my first. Probably was a collection booklet of where they reprinted Amazing Fantasy 15.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was like and it's interesting how there was commentary about reading the earlier tweet about Amazing Fantasy 25, because that's actually was one of my favorite comics from from the early run, and because of that fact of the way it was illustrated and everything like this, it's it was a.
Let's go around the panel real quick. JR, I've never heard. How did you discover Ditko? What was your first? You remember the first time you saw his art?
Probably, I was thinking about this. Probably, there was a series of paperback books in the 70s, and that reprinted early issues. The first one reprinted Amazing Fantasy 15 through Amazing Spider-Man 6, and that probably, right now, as far as I can think, as far back as I can go, that's probably my first time I saw his art.
George, how about you? Do you remember the first time you saw Ditko stuff?
I don't remember exactly which issue it was, but it was definitely like a Marvel Tales.
Yeah,
like an old back issue of Marvel Tales.
Yeah. Chi-Town, how about you?
Marvel Masterworks, a hardcover.
Oh yeah, in '87 when they came out, I remember those. That's funny. We haven't heard Zach. What was the first time you saw Ditko's stuff?
Oh, I don't remember. I remember getting my first Ditko reprint, and it was a reprint of ASM 1.
Yeah,
it had the silver border. I think it was the 30th anniversary edition.
Yeah, I
remember picking that up and like being excited. Oh my god, it's ASM 1! And then like it's worth like 5 cents.
And you know, his art is very subjective. All art is subjective, and I know George and I have talked about this. George prefers Romita, and I guess in the long run, I do prefer Romita.
Now, I do prefer Ditko's earlier work on Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
that's where I like Ditko. Now, I didn't hate Ditko on Spider-Man. I'm just like, it's not my definitive Spider-Man, except for like ASM 33, which is more of a character defining moment. Which is my favorite Ditko issue. But I mean, like when I think of Spider-Man, I definitely think of the Romita Spider-Man.
Yeah, I do too. And do you think that Javi, you can answer this since you're. Do you think he would have the popularity he would if Ditko stayed on 100 issues?
That's a good question. No, I think so. I think he was doing something original and unique compared to everything else. And it stood out. He had an energy, and I was, looking through all my digital copies that I have, trying to put together like a piece to post on my Instagram. And there's just, you can't pick one or even 7. There's just so many good panels and images that just they're dynamic and striking, even by today's standards.
I've often thought that Romita is like the third father.
Yeah.
I mean,
totally.
I think Steve and Stan launched him into the stratosphere, but Romita took him even farther into the universe.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't think without those 3 men, I think we would have I don't think we'd be on this show if we didn't have those 3 guys.
With the FF, it's the fantastic. It's Kirby and Stan. With Spider-Man, even Greg Weisman always would mention John. It was Stan, Steve, and John because those Ditko was the foundational piece, but really Romita is what made it mainstream.
I think I asked this on Ditko News a while back. What would Romita's Spider-Man costume look like if Ditko didn't design it? It would probably be more muscular. It would probably be more classic superhero-ish.
Yes.
And I think I read in that several interviews, Spider-Man's costume it looked like a villain.
Yes.
I don't know where I read that, but I've heard that before.
They talked about that pretty extensively in the like on Spider-Man 1 DVD set and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Javi, any other thoughts or anything you want to ask us or?
No, just that I'm not surprised that it happened, and I'm not surprised that he was found the way he was. But at the same time, I'm just kind of shocked. His art was such a big, influence on what I loved about the character, or what started that love. And it's, not to be over dramatic, but it's like that's a piece of my childhood that just isn't around anymore in a certain way.
I've been asking everybody, Javi, before you go, do you think Steve Ditko was happy?
I think he was content.
That's very good.
I think he was content.
Yeah. Javi, always a pleasure, man. We enjoy your reviews and your work on the site. You're a friend, true and true, for coming on, man. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it, gentlemen. You guys have a good night.
You too, man.
Yeah, you too.
Hi, Abby.
All right, next up on the live callers, we've got Ryan Reed. As soon as he clicks on,
let me.
I've already sent him the link, so he should be coming on any second.
Okay, there goes Javi, and you sent it Ryan. Okay.
Yep.
Again, if you'd like to join our show, email Zach, or we will send you the link.
The easiest way, honestly,
go ahead.
Is going to be just give me your email address. I will send you a message, and that way I know that you can get it, and then we'll go from there. So we got Ryan on the line.
Share your email address again.
CloneSagaChronicles@gmail.com.
There you go. What's up, Ryan?
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight?
I meant to ask Javi. Do you guys know where Javi is from? It escapes me at the moment.
Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. And Ryan, where are you from again?
I live in Genoa, Illinois.
There you go.
He's an ILer, just like
So, how did you hear about Steve Ditko passing, Ryan?
Believe it or not, I was doing some searches on Facebook. I was getting some pictures up and going. All of a sudden, I read an article that Steve Ditko had died, and I was just like shocked. So I was going through all the different informations, and then I just found that out that he had just passed away.
What were your thoughts when the police found him and social worker came to check? You hadn't heard from him in a few days, or?
Well, I found that kind of very interesting too, but at the same time, Steve Ditko lived a very solitary life. I remember when I wrote him a fan letter a couple of years ago.
That is true. I remember you wrote a letter and you got a reply. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, I wrote him a letter. I had gotten his address for fan letter, and I had decided to actually, instead of like ask about Spider-Man, I talked about Mysterio because he was my favorite Spider-Man villain. He was actually the first exposure I ever had to Steve Ditko was my grandfather. Actually, had the original copy of Amazing Spider-Man 13. This was about 82 when this happened. It was pretty beat up. That was my first exposure to it. And I was used to the John Romita Senior Spider-Man because this was just before Amazing Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends had started on NBC. So, I decided to ask him about that, and he actually wrote up about talking about horror influences of Vincent Price and everything that actually influenced his ideas, like the original House of Wax, which is actually how he got the design for Mysterio and the kind of like you didn't know who he looked behind the fishbowl. And he talked about a couple other things. I also told him I had just gotten a book published, and he was saying, congratulations, very hard work. Remember to always do it for yourself, to do the work you feel is top for you. So, that's cool. I didn't want to say anything Spider-Man because I knew I probably had to let her stop there.
That's a trigger word. Why do you think it was a trigger word for him? He did not want to talk about Spider-Man anymore.
No, that's really interesting because you guys were talking. I was listening to you guys. You were talking about J.M. DeMantis's talk about how he said Spider-Man. Believe it or not, I was checking Nick Spencer and believe it or not, Dan Slott's social network feed, and Dan Slott himself even said too is like it was something he thinks was just whatever led to the split between him and Stan Lee and Marvel. He doesn't know if it was over Spider-Man or Doctor Strange, but he basically says that was taboo for anybody entering the industry when it came to Steve Ditko because even who was it? He mentioned it was Tim Sale. Tim Sale had actually said that some of his work was influenced earlier on, him and Jack Kirby, and he was about to say Spider-Man, and Steve looked at Tim and said, "Don't say it. That is a part of my history."
Yeah,
but like talking about
it's his kryptonite. Yeah. What was your first introduction to Ditko? Oh, you already said it was at Dr. Doom's. The Mysterio.
Mysterio. Yeah, it was Amazing Spider-Man 13, really beat up kind of version. I actually have a reprint I got as a gift of Mysterio, including a collector's card that I have right now. I was actually looking after I was reading the news and the different articles about how they found him. I actually went downstairs and pulled it up. Actually, was looking at it. So it was
any questions for us or anything you'd like to ask us, or what are your thoughts?
Well, everybody's been talking, but I think interesting thing too is what do you think was actually Steve Ditko's best Spider-Man contribution? He was the one that did the original
contribution. The suit. I think the suit. The costume by far. Mm-hmm. We were just talking about what if Romita designed the costume? What would it look like? Would it be more heroic, bigger muscles, not so scrawny?
No web pits.
No web pit. Yeah, probably not a full face mask.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting thing because I mean Steve. They said too he was the very first artist ever to draw a superhero costume without underoos in any shape or form. Almost everybody, DC, Marvel, some of the old horror comics, he had, he was the first character that actually had a belt more than underwear. And when he went on to create characters such as Hawk and Dove for DC, as well as The Question, he was looking into much more darker aspect because Steve himself said he never liked underoos. He thought it looked ridiculous. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Besides the costume and the rest of the panel, what do you think his biggest contribution was besides the costume?
I think it was.
Go ahead, JR.
I think it was keeping Spider-Man grounded, because when you look at the original the first, the Fantastic Four and the Hulk. I mean, they were largely very science fiction oriented villains fighting aliens and things of that nature. And even though you had the terrible Tinkerer issue in #2, I think when you look at the other villains that Steve helped create or write about, I mean, you had the Big Man, Crime Master. I mean, Spider-Man fought thugs and punks, and the Sandman was a big thug, and the Green Goblin in Stan's original version was a spirit from an Egyptian sarcophagus, and then Ditko turned him into a colorful criminal villain. But I think that was another one of Steve's major contributions, is just making sure that Spider-Man was a down to earth, literally and figuratively, superhero.
I randomly just searched for characters co-created by Steve Ditko. We're going to go by alphabet. Liz Allen, the Ancient One, Robbie Baldwin, which is the Speedball, Billy Connors, Betty Brant, the Burglar, the Chameleon, the Creeper for DC, Doctor Strange, Dormammu, the Electro, the Enforcers, Eternity, Fancy Dan, Farley Stillwell, Frederick Foswell, Max Gargan, or Mac Gargan, Hawk and Dove, Jack-O-Lantern, the Jackal? I don't think he created the Jackal, did he? No.
No, not the Jackal, but the Jack-O-Lantern first appeared in Machine Man, I believe.
Okay.
So,
J. Jonah Jameson, John Jameson, Craven the Hunter, Ned Leeds, the Living Brain, the Lizard, the Looter, Martha Connors, Aunt May, let's see, the Molten Man, Baron Mordo,
Vulture.
Mysterio, Nightmare, Dr. Octopus, Harry Osborn, Norman Osborn, Princess Python, The Question, the Marvel Sandman, Sinister Six, Spencer Smythe, Spider-Man, Spider Slayer, Squirrel Girl, Gwen Stacy, Mendel Strom, Glenn Talbot. Oh, I didn't think about that. Flash Thompson.
Wow.
Flash Thompson, the Tinkerer, Uncle Ben, the Vulture. It says Mary Jane Watson. Granted, she was covered by a flower. I'm going to give Ramita that one.
Yeah.
And also Wong from Doctor Strange. That is a ton of characters. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
That he was the first to
notice
pencil.
it's all, and the thing is, I mean, if you think about it, a lot of those characters you named off, I mean, it's pretty much, he's pretty much credited with pretty much nearly the majority of the supporting cast and the villains as we know it. I mean, it's just
nothing besides the Ditko era stuck.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Nothing.
The Rhino was a Ramita.
Yeah, but
and
okay.
the Shocker.
Mary Jane stuck. I mean, but
I'm the Scorpion.
as far as the scorecard,
Well, Scorpion was created by Ditko.
Oh, that's right. I'm
Romita
sorry.
created
King,
Kingpin.
That's the two I'm getting mixed up.
All right, Ryan. Any other thoughts before you take another call?
It's just like, it's a passing of a legend. I remember years ago, just before I got back into comics, when Jack Kirby had passed away. So, and I remember him from the Fourth World, which is a lot of my stuff in Captain America and Fantastic Four. So, yeah, it's definitely the ending of an era with someone. And he did pass away similar to how he had lived the last 4 or 5 decades of his life too. And hopefully his legacy lives on.
I think it will.
Yeah. All right, Ryan. Thank you, sir.
No problem, guys. Have a good night.
You too, man.
Thanks, Ryan.
After that incredibly long list that we listened to, the thing that
Way to be
stood out-
passive aggressive.
the thing. Well, I mean,
It's
George.
George.
It just went on for years.
Kind of like you're getting to your point.
Well, we keep derailing me, but no, Dr. Octopus. A lot of those villains that we listed on that incredibly agonizingly long list, a lot of them have changed dramatically since the Ditko years. Dr. Octopus's personality, by and large, is still very much like it was back in those early days.
Yep.
Who do you think's changed? Craven still seems the same.
No, Brad
no.
Craven. Oh God, no.
God.
Are you high on crack cocaine?
He still is on the hunt for Spider-Man.
No, he's
He's
not.
just a little bit more suicidal since JMD Mateus.
Okay, never mind.
All right.
I give the hell up.
I
I think that normal people understand what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
Everybody but Douglas.
I think everyone except Brad right now understands what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Everyone on the YouTube chat understands exactly what the hell I'm talking about.
all right.
Yeah, at the very least, when you think of that's the thing about Dr. Octopus. I mean, that's aside from Spider-Man, that's the other guy. When you look at him, you know instantly who that character is with the arms and everything like this. And
I mean, like,
yeah.
and just his personality, the bombastic, over the top supervillain. I mean, a lot. I mean, Norman has changed exponentially since the show, and so have most of the other villains. But Dr. Octopus, by and large, I'm not saying that. Like, obviously, there's been a lot of history. We had the whole thing with Aunt May. There's moments where Otto is even heroic in his own way. But I mean, by and large, his base personality. It's still consistent with what Ditko and Lee did.
Zach is working in the green room to get another caller on. Who do we got? Anybody?
Well, our next caller will be Action Gamer as soon as he hops on the line.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
I want to address something I'm seeing in the comments here.
Mhm.
I don't want to start an argument with this or a debate or anything. Gino Ames says, I honestly believe Spidey owes more to Ditko than Lee. Regardless, Peter Parker, I think, is Stan Lee's creation. Peter Parker may look like Ditko looked at 16 years old. I think there's some basis for that. But the character of Peter Parker, which is absolutely essential to Spider-Man, I think was created and molded by Stan Lee. I don't think Spider-Man could exist without either man.
Look,
I agree. I think it's 50-50, honestly.
You had, and I think this was even from Marvel: The Untold Story, or it may have been something anecdotal that because we've talked about this before. But at like one point, like Ditko was writing in like people yelling out or Spider-Man calling people dirty hippies.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. And Stan Lee was like, "Oh hell no, we can't have the character that we know has way more to do with Stan Lee than it. Because otherwise, you would have had Spidey running around talking about objectivism and things like he would have been quoting Atlas Shrugged.
Well, the thing
like
is,
that.
there's definitely kind of a marked difference in terms of style and tone when you look at the Ditko comics versus when John Romita Sr. came on board. Especially when you get into the later stuff. They even talk about it in terms of documentary in that one documentary about Steve Ditko that came out a couple of years, where in terms it almost felt like, even though Stan Lee is writing the things, Ditko still kind of had his influence kind of seep in there, and there was definitely kind of a little bit more of in some ways it was kind of a darker book, I think, in a little bit Spider-Man was in those early issues than compared to the Romita ones.
I think I will say that in the Romita years, Spidey just started beating ass. Straight up just started beating ass rather than just kind of punch and with like a little concussion bubble or whatever. Just straight up just started tearing people apart in the Romita.
Yeah, but also in terms of the style thing, that the image of when we see Spider-Man in a multiple in multiple places at once indicate speed, that's Ditko too. Everyone kind of that's classic stuff thing.
Yep.
Same with the half mask thing for indicate spider sense. I would even say I'm not sure if he's mentioned anything, but I think a lot of Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man work, it's totally Ditko influence if you look at his stuff. What he was doing there.
Early days Ron Friends. He was really very much so was doing a Steve Ditko type. You read The Kid Who Collected Spider-Man, and that's very much a Steve Ditko. And even in the early days of the DeFalco run with Ron, very much was a Steve Ditko influenced Spider-Man. Now you look at Steve Ditko you look at Ron now, it's more Romita influenced, especially his later Spider-Girl work.
I would agree.
But
Friends did a great poster that I had in the 80s. It was old and new, and it was split down the middle, and the left looked I thought both sides looked Ditko-ish.
Very much.
But it was a great poster that was in my bedroom for years.
I had the same poster in my bedroom. It was on the back of my door. And
guys, I think I had like Farrah Fawcett, but go ahead.
I had Cheryl Ladd and Kate Jackson. So
I had Joe Jusko Mary Jane swimsuit edition.
That's
Am
what
I right, Chi-Town?
Yep. That was in my room.
I remember that one. Let's try another caller. I didn't think that one worked, Zach.
Yeah, Action Gamer's having issues.
Okay.
I don't have anybody else up on the.
If you would like to join for a live callers, post your email in the chat, and I'll send you the link.
I'll see if I can get some cosplayers to join.
Okay, cool.
Whoa! Do not try to. Don't call me, man.
I'll call you. Do we have a favorite Ditko issue that we can talk amongst the panel? George, you got one that comes to the top of your head?
Oh yeah, I've already mentioned it. It's ASM 33.
With the lifting of the heavy
Something
stuff.
that was horrendously mangled in Spider-Man: Homecoming. But yeah, no, that's the earliest defining moment.
Yeah.
for me as a Spider-Man fan is when you know that whole Master Planner Dr. Octopus arc.
Oh yeah.
But like when he's buried and he's just ready to give up, and then he's like, "No, hell no, can't give up. Too much riding on it. Just not going to do it." And that defined the character for so many other moments throughout that character's history of him just not giving the hell up.
Yep.
Go
ahead, Mike.
I think, I mean, it wasn't so much, I think it might have been spread out over basically issues 18 and 19, where basically for a moment, Spider-Man got, like, I think it was after an issue where he's fighting the Green Goblin and Aunt May gets sick and he has to kind of retire. And so there's a whole series of issues where J. Jonah Jameson has this big, wide-eyed, grin the whole time. And then there's I think it was in 19 where Jonah finds out that Spider-Man's back in action. And there's a series of panels, like 3 of them, where you see Jonah's smile disappear. And I was thinking it was just in terms of like artistic thing, it was just like, just a brilliant, just the way he, Ditko drew that, just showing that emotion thing. Yeah, it was slightly exaggerated, but it was just like, for me, that's like, wow, when I read that for the first time, it's like, wow, this is just some really
couple that come to mind. Gino actually just said in our YouTube chat, the first appearance of the Sinister Six. In Marvel Tales 150, it was, how much did this cost back in 1983? This came out. It was a whopping $1 for a double-size issue of Marvel Tales where it reprinted the whole annual. And I loved that. Because back in the day, I don't think, you guys can correct me, I don't think artists wasted a full page for a splash like they do now. And the thing I remember about that annual wasn't the knockout punch or some during the fight, there was one whole page that Ditko drew.
There's 6 of them.
There's 6 full page pieces of art in that annual. That's just beautiful. And I think that's just one of the best ones of Ditko. Also, from purely a Spider-Man Hulk fan and Norman Osborn fan, Amazing 14 with JR and George. We've done this on History and Fight Club. It's a dumb story, but my 7-8-year-old eyes can't see it that way. I just love that book so much.
Well, I know that it was issue 39, the first one where I took over. So when we were talking about fights, but I think Ditko created the look of so many characters. I mean, if you look under, like, for the old website, like Ditko Looked Up, and I think, and you see predecessors to Aunt May, Uncle Ben, Liz Allen, the Lizard, and Norman Osborn, and I don't have a particular favorite Ditko issue, but obviously his influence on the creation of the Green Goblin and Norman Osborn. I mean, Norman's hair, for example. I mean, just. You know who that is. I mean, it's when you see him, because of that weird hair, you know who that is. It's just one of those things, that one of those little artistic touches that have no real bearing on how somebody really looks, but it's just an indelible image that defines, or is part of the definition of that character. And that's all credit to Ditko, really.
Yeah. What any other issues that stand out for you guys?
Let's see.
We haven't mentioned.
Let's see. What was another one? Probably again going back to 25. I mean, we talked about that as well. I think there's again 33. There's so many images of there, and I think it's just what was it, Dane? But yeah, just, I mean, it's kind of trying to think about, because there's so many of them. But
George, is one of your favorites the second annual with Spidey and Doc Strange?
I don't really know. It's not actually one of my favorite Doctor Strange things. I think there were other better things.
I don't think Spidey and Doc Strange mixed that well. I don't know. Maybe it's me.
They do, but I don't know. Just the early stuff with them is not as strong for me as like the later stuff that came out.
Okay.
But I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I've always liked the Spidey Doctor Strange dynamic. I've actually thought that Spidey works better with Doctor Strange than he ever does as an Avenger. It's same thing with the Fantastic Four. I just think he's a more natural fit working with Doctor Strange, Daredevil, Fantastic Four, that kind of thing, or showing up in the X-Men and kicking their ass in their own book.
So the other biggest Mary Jane fan that I know of, besides myself, is Chi-Town. What would Mary Jane look like if Steve Ditko drew her?
Well, her face would be a flower pot, that's for sure. But it's even though he kind of introduced the character, I'm always going to see John Romita as Mary Jane, artist that first designed her or whatnot, because he specifically had a task: make Mary Jane look like knockout beautiful, and I don't think Ditko could have done that, to tell you the truth.
She would have looked like
Liz Allen-ish.
If you remember the issue where you see Liz and Betty say, "Oh my God, that's Mary Jane," this celebrity. They kind of look the same, and then Mary Jane would look exactly like Liz and Betty Brant. But I think Romita really defined who Mary Jane was, and especially Gwen Stacy too. Even though I'm a Mary Jane fan, but
I kind of think the joke would have been that Steve Ditko would purposely kind of leave Mary Jane's face obscured if he stayed on the book forever, because that would have been the gag that if he stayed on, I think his idea would have been
Home Improvement.
Yeah,
Face it, Tiger.
Pretty much,
you
like-
can't see the rest of me.
no. The idea was, I think if I read somewhere, the idea was that Peter would never have met her, but everyone who else would have, and say that she was being this knockout gorgeous thing, and Peter would somehow always miss her, and then so therefore
And always
he would never,
think that she was like really hideous, but not
Yeah, exactly. And then so he would have so Ditko would never. He would always probably say I think if he stayed on the book, he would always have found some way to kind of obscure face, like you said, Mr. Wilson, and just like everyone else, like I don't know, but who knows? It'd be one of those. For some reason, I think that sounds like kind of thematically, kind of like his thing. It would be his thing.
I think that things like the Parker Luck, Ditko got better. I'm not saying that he got better than Romita, but like I think he had a good sense of irony.
Yeah.
That some don't know how to do today. Very few writers can nail irony. It's so contrived nowadays. It's not, irony is subtle until it hits you in the face. Whereas there is no subtlety with modern writers, and I'm just speaking in general when it comes to irony, and they can't. Yeah. So still trying to get.
It's okay. I'm asking the YouTubers before we wrap this show up what they would like us to answer. I thought we'd stay on the line and answer some of their questions.
There's kind of something I want to say, and this is kind of a little bit of the problem I have with Ditko in a way, and his personality. I mean, there's a lot of people who are saying, well, Ditko, he did it his way, and no apologies, and and that's great. But part of me thinks of how much comics history is just lost.
Yes,
because he was so goddamned
stubborn,
obstinate. I mean, he never
is
wrote
the word selfish. Do you think it's selfish to?
I think it is in a way. I think it is in a way when it's where where what you think and what you feel is the most absolute important thing, and nobody else's opinion matters. Credit can't be shared or blame can't be assumed. I mean, I get the impression that Ditko, one reason Ditko wasn't married was I can't see the man compromising. I mean, any kind of relationship, requires compromise. And even if it wasn't Stan, and even if certain of Stan's. I mean, come on, to be honest, I mean, and I know that we'll probably wind up having another special podcast. Stan took far more credit in those early days than he should have. He absolutely did. I mean, like I said, if you read the history of Marvel Comics, that first book from the 70s, it's like Stan I had these great ideas, and then I asked Jack and Steve to draw them. But I mean, Steve. I mean, really, the only way we know what the Kirby Spider-Man might have looked like is because Ditko did a rendition of him when Ditko was doing one of his essays. And the whole argument is like, who was the Green Goblin originally supposed to be? And we think it was always that Ditko always created it with Norman in mind, but we don't know for sure. Who created who gave the name to who decided that somebody was going to look a certain way. The whole creative process, so much history is, and really, to be honest, with Kirby too, because Kirby just had a way of looking at things and was so bitter about his relationship with Lee. But so much comics history, I think, is lost just because Ditko was so, like I said, so goddamn obstinate.
Terry James says Ditko gave his side of the story in several essays, JR. I mean,
but he didn't give, he gave, I mean, I haven't read all these, and I don't. But I think he shrouded it in mystery. It wasn't like a factual, it wasn't like, here's what happened. Stan said this, I said this, so and so threw this in. I based it on this particular individual. I mean, it's so much of it is shrouded in his philosophical underpinnings. It's not. I don't think he left a satisfactory record behind. I mean, that's my opinion.
Well, I mean, and also, I mean, what Jay's are bringing up, I mean, and I've seen this comparison often made, is that they could describe him as Ditko as a J.D. Salinger of comics, essentially, because both of them are. But I mean, granted, both men had very different views on things, but in terms of like being both very private individuals, and also they keep talking about how Ditko was still kind of working even up to his death, apparently. So if he's got a bunch of stuff like laying around in his apartment that he never bothered to publish and it's just sitting there, somebody's going,
I read it somewhere that somebody went to Ditko's apartment and they did see like he drew like Doctor Strange stories or something. This could be fact or fiction. But
sure.
They saw him that he did continue to draw Doctor Strange. He just didn't release them. That's one of the rumors that I've heard over the years.
I going back to JR's earlier point about Ditko being selfish, and there's all this stuff that we don't know, and there's what was the last thing you said about that, JR, about
abstinent or
not
abstinent.
Obstinate.
No, about like I guess like the history not being complete or whatever like that.
Yeah,
I think Ditko's general thing would be so what. I mean, Ditko, like if Ditko were here to talk to you now, he would. I think just from his standpoint, I mean, he's so individualistic. I think he would have just been. I don't owe you anything. That's all in your head. That's how you feel. I did work. I drew a character.
I have to agree. I have to say I do not understand that in the slightest. I mean, I remember I'm a guy who hates unsolved mysteries in a way. I hate not knowing who killed John Benet Ramsey. Things like that. I have to know.
Wow.
And the thing that there's this treasure trove of history that is unknown now. I just hate that. I just really do. I hate not knowing.
I mean, we as fans can hate that, but at the same time, I think if he was here, Ditko would be like, I don't know anything.
Yeah, and I don't understand that. I really don't understand.
I actually do get that. I do get that, and because a lot of we've been talking. I think I'm actually probably more like Ditko than probably anybody here. Because I look at Ditko, and Ditko was principle was very big with Ditko. And I've taken principled stands on things before. Didn't buy 800. Wasn't going to pay $10 for a comic book. But also, I mean, like just your own personal freedom. I get this cat. Like I get not wanting to be around a lot of people. Like it's the same reason why I won't ever get married. I see too many of my friends say, well, yeah, let me ask permission first from my significant other. And I'm like, oh, hell no. I'd rather get eaten by Komodo dragons than have to ask permission for something.
I see where George is heading. I mean, it's just
I get Ditko. I really do on a lot of levels, and it's funny to me to see all of these people now. A lot of the creators who, because if Ditko had kept talking and had kept just out in the spotlight and gave interviews to CBR every half hour whenever they wanted clickbait or whatever, and he would talk, very specifically and very openly about what he actually believed, I guarantee you a lot of these people would be hating him. They would be.
Well, I mean, and that's why I think a lot of it is the way you hear even what prior to stuff they were always talking about how Ditko was a very complex individual, but in terms of complex is because in terms of what his beliefs kind of conflicted a lot of the times with theirs,
exactly.
And how they were trying to and how they were trying to reconcile. Here's this guy who's this incredibly influential and very creative artist, and they're thinking, well, but his beliefs are so off the wall and everything.
They're so alien to us. Yeah.
How could somebody like this create Doctor Strange, for example? Or
I think
Spider-Man?
Ditko just liked his freedom.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Oh, absolutely he did. Absolutely he did.
I will say though, I now that George is George provided his perspective, I think I tend to agree a little bit because a lot of creative people don't get it. And this is not; these are not maybe some extreme examples, but like John Mellencamp made a comment one time, that people would come up to him years later, and ask what happened to Jack and Diane. And for a long, long time, he just thought it's a blank song, people. It's just a song. But then he said, as he got older, he said, wait a minute. People have been listening to this song for 25 years. It's just natural to wonder. And so he kind of got it. But you like a lot of actors, when they portray a great character, or writers who write a great character, a lot of times they're not cognizant really of the sheer impact it has on people, and it takes them a long time. I mean, it took Leonard Nimoy a long time, I think, to fully accept Spock and the impact that Spock had on pop culture and on people. I mean, he appreciated it, he understood it, but I don't think he really understood it until after the Wrath of Khan, probably partly because he and Roddenberry didn't get along, and once Roddenberry was gone, Leonard was more at peace. But Lucas, I think, sometimes just sits back and goes, I don't get it. It was just a sci-fi adventure. It was just my own Flash Gordon. I don't get it how it's this big.
It's like
I like how it's made me rich, but
it's like they're disconnected from the connection that others have.
Yeah.
And because they're focused on something else entirely. They're doing it for a completely different reason, and they just don't understand the other part of it, and nor do they seek to. Or, well, Nimoy did, I think, but Ditko never did. Ditko was like, I have moved the hell on. I'm doing other things.
Ditko self-produced a lot of comics. He had Robin Snyder, I think, helped produce some of his original art up to possibly the day he died. There's a website. One of the things that Ditko put out that I tried to order, it was sold out through their. I think he had to mail off things, and you couldn't order it online. Hence, which discouraged me from buying it. But I didn't get around to it when I asked if it was still in print. It wasn't, and it was Ditko's essay on why I quit Spider-Man. And I have scoured the internet for this to be scanned or reprinted, and I found, I don't know if this is the full article, or if this is just a portion of it or whatever, but at comichehistorians.com, it reprinted just a little bit of it. So this is what Ditko wrote in his essay within the last 2 or 3 years, I think. He said, quote, all Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and Marvel fans are free to decide which method produced the best results for Spider-Man, Doctor Strange. So why did I actually decide to quit? One day I got a call from Saul. Saul, he was the publisher, is that right? Saul Brodsky, I think. Yeah. Okay, so he was essentially the editor, I think. I don't know. The next Spider-Man annual is coming up. Okay. Later, thinking about what I could do for the annual, I asked myself, why should I do it? Why should I continue to do all these monthly issues, original story ideas, material for a man who is too scared, too angry over something to even see to talk to me? At some point, I decided to quit Marvel, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange. My next visit to Marvel, I told Saul I was quitting Marvel. Saul told Stan. The only person who had the right to know why I was quitting refused to come out of his office or to call me in. Stan refused to know why, is what Steve Ditko wrote in his essay. What do you think of that?
Still doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's pissed at Stan. He's pissed at Stan, which we all knew. He was pissed at Stan. And like I've said, kind of before, Stan reminds me of some other managers I've had who just simply will not manage. But really, there's no details. There's no details.
You know what I get from all that, though?
What?
And what I get from that, what I get is that at one point while they were doing Spider-Man or early on at Marvel, Stan and Steve probably got along like syrup and pancakes. And then what happened was there was one day, there was one thing or one fight. I can almost guarantee there was one thing that they just butted heads over so strongly that they didn't even want to talk to one another after that, and then it just went off from that.
The cartoon profits is what I think may have started, at least from Marvel's that Marvel book that we read, George, by Sean Howe. Him not credited or not being compensated for that cartoon in what, 66?
Yeah.
67? Yeah.
That was Kirby, though, wasn't it? Because they were literally cutting and pasting.
Yeah, but I don't.
No, that was the Marvel superheroes show. I'm talking about the Spider-Man Paul Souls one.
I don't know though that Ditko, again, because look at Ditko and look at his. I mean, Ditko was never like, oh, but I did all this work and I deserve X and X and X. Ditko knew it was work for hire. Ditko knew everything he worked on was not owned by him. He understood it. So I don't know that that's technically the case. I don't know that that's technically the case, but I do. But I do get that they were probably really good. Like they really got along at one point, and then like after they had one falling out, and then after that, they were just like, I can't even look at this other person now. I just can't do it.
Symbio Bro on the YouTube chat says, if you could have Ditko draw any character that he never drew, who would it be? Mary Jane. Spock.
I would love to see. I mean, he didn't limit it to Spider-Man, so
that's true. Spock,
but I would love to see Ditko's Spock, because you know how he created. Ditko's characters were always, particularly like Spider-Man. They were like thin, they were angular, they were lanky. I would have loved to see his Spock. I guess maybe.
Have you ever seen Ditko's Superman? He's drawn Superman. It's very different.
I saw one Superman. It was odd.
Did he draw Batman?
Yes. I was going to say that if there was one character he would have drawn, it would be Batman. But it turns out he actually illustrated Jerry Conway's Man-Bat series.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
that's cool.
And so Batman's in there, and he said there was even a blog post where showing some of the images of Batman in there and everything like that. So yeah, it was just like, and again, it's sort of like kind of has that more of that kind of a lankier look to and everything like this, but it was just like, oh wow. So it's just like, but it's just the way he illustrates the thing and like this. It's just like, so yeah. So it's one of those things where you're just kind of surprised about things. Oh,
do we have Action Gamer on the line?
We do finally have Action Gamer on the line.
Action, what's up, man?
Hey, how are you guys?
We're good. We're good. What's your question for the panel? What you got for us, sir?
Well, I just have a comment mostly. Some of what I've seen from. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Oh, wait, hold on. I think there's an echo. Let me see if it's something on my part.
Mute the YouTube page.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I have Firefox open and Google Chrome open. That's why. Where was I? Oh, yeah.
Question for us.
Comment mostly.
Okay.
Some of Steve Ditko's works can be seen in other mediums, like this one episode of The Spectacular Spider-Man, where Doc Ock kidnaps Gwen and tries to coerce Captain Stacy into giving him some kind of code that will let him get access to technology across the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a scene where Spider-Man lifts up a barrage of technology. I can see some of Steve Ditko's influence in that cartoon, and I think Greg Weisman talks a lot about it.
Yeah.
I interviewed Greg specifically, and that was one of those that he felt like they had to nail. He felt like they had to nail that scene in that episode because Greg felt that was such an important moment in the cartoon.
Which one again?
Where it's the homage to ASM 33, where
It's
they
the ASM 33
The
moment.
lifting of the
because that was their version of the Master Planner arc.
Yeah.
And he felt like that was one of those that they had to, like, he was very meticulous. It had to look right. And it was one of the, I think it was better done that way than even as much as I liked this scene overall in Homecoming, but that was probably the best visual representation that I saw in cartoon medium of the ASM 33.
I am curious about one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you guys think Stan Lee will say about this? Because his response is the only one I haven't seen on Twitter.
I think he'll be praising, like when Kirby passed, he'll call him a genius. I think he'll be respectful. Stan's not in a good place. So
Stan's got a lot of his own issues going on.
Unfortunately, I feel like sooner rather than later, like I put on the front page today, we will be doing this for Stanley. And
I don't want to wish that.
Yeah, let's.
I don't want to wish it, but I just know that the reality is that sooner rather than later, it's going to happen.
Well, you don't want to wish it, but when you get hints about the condition he's in and how people are treating him.
Yeah.
You don't want it to keep going on like this. So
yeah. Action Gamer, where did you hear the news? What went through your mind? Stuff like that.
On Twitter, I left my computer in sleep mode. As soon as I came back from some exercise, some jogging, I refreshed the page, and that was the first entry.
Yeah. Where are you calling from, by the way?
Calling down from the south, from Florida.
Florida. Okay.
Cool. Otherwise
that
known
state.
There's another one you don't like, JR.
I've bashed Florida on the show before.
Oh, okay.
But
especially when Bertoni was on, because he's from Florida.
Yeah.
Well, Action Gamer, I'm glad you got on. Any other comments to us or anything you'd like to say before you go?
I found it really depressing that Steve Ditko passed away. I know some people who have, and it's not a very easy conversation to have.
I asked the other callers, do you think he was happy?
I think for a guy to live in this day and age where he doesn't have to be bothered by social media or any inquiries, I think he might have lived a pretty peaceful life considering all the technology that's around.
That's true. That's true. All right, man. Thank you for calling in.
Thanks.
Thanks.
See you later.
Bye.
All right.
Yep.
All right. That was a good one. I think we're good. Want to go around for final thoughts, or you guys have anything else that you want to talk about before we wrap this show up?
No, I think we're just past your 90-minute mark. So
that's what I wanted to hit. Let's go around the horn. Mike, what were you going to say? Final thoughts. Mike.
I just think, well, I mean, we all kind of know that one of these days it was going to happen, but the fact that the guy who is the here we are, the co-creator of Spider-Man, it's still kind of hard to believe that you have the passing of a legend like this. And I think in terms of the comic book world owes a great debt to him that we still in this day, I think we still have yet to kind of appreciate and uncover. And even though I understand that there's some that maybe he's not, maybe in terms of his contributions, like if JR was talking about, maybe it's not as large as say Kirby was in terms of it, but it's always quantity. It's always quality over quantity. I think in this thing, I think in terms of Ditko, it definitely was quality in terms of what he did put out. And and he's going to be missed.
JR, before we get your final thoughts, I just remembered something. We were talking earlier about how Harlan Ellison passed away. Back in the 1980s, I went to a comic book store, and in the comic book store was a VHS copy of a Harlan Ellison documentary where he interviewed various comic book creators, and Steve Ditko was one of them. On the cover of the VHS art, it said interviews with these comic creators. And I'm like, oh, Steve Ditko is on this VHS. So I buy the VHS. I pop it in. It's nothing but narration of Steve Ditko and his art. There's no visuals on a video cassette. Did you ever see that documentary?
Never.
9-year-old kid wanted to finally see what Steve Ditko looked like, and I didn't get it.
Oh, you mean he didn't?
That explains a lot of things that have happened afterwards.
Wait, George, you mean he didn't tune into the crawl space and find that podcast where you thought you'd found the Ditko pictures?
We have not mentioned the story. You've got to
Okay,
tell
we have to tell this story on the Ditko Memorial. George, you were there with me. Tell me when I thought I was reeling in a big fish.
Okay, so one night, we were up and Brad.
This is news to me because I never heard it.
You've never heard that story? It's a good one.
Brad is like, dude, I have found pictures of Steve Ditko, and he's like at a wedding getting drunk, and he's like on some chick. And so he
has a Schlitz beer, right?
Yeah, no, it was some kind of German beer or something like that. And so he shows me the pictures, and I'm like, I guarantee goddamn to you, Brad, this is not Steve Ditko. This is okay. First of all, this is supposed to be a wedding. It was on some forum where he found this, and people posted this like, "Oh, this is Steve Ditko." And so Brad immediately is like, "This is Steve Ditko." And I'm like, dude, if this was Steve Ditko, trust me, Bleeding Cool would have already ran this link like 6 or 7 times. All right. So, and I'm pointing out, I'm like, okay, the pictures are credited to a photographer that you cannot find anywhere else on the internet. Let that
there's no webpage to go to.
A photographer that doesn't have a website, Brad. And Brad is like, no, I am through the looking. He was like Kevin Costner in JFK. I am through the looking glass. This is going. The history changes tonight. Right here.
It was literally like it was the equivalent of him finding the Loch Ness monster plus in the same.
Yeah, like pictures of like Bigfoot, like putting a saddle on fucking Nessie. And so Brad, and I'm like, dude, this is not Steve Ditko. Brad, it's not. And it is. It's like an old man, even like looking at a hot chick, but hey, and I'm like, dude, buddy, this is not Steve. Steve Ditko does not get drunk at like a garage party and hit on co-eds, man. It's not what it does. All right. So it's 3:00 in the morning, and Brad emails Tom DeFalco. Because I mean, this is just, all hands on deck.
It wasn't just Tom, but
and so Tom DeFalco like emails emails Brad a little bit later and is like, okay, number 1, no, this is not Steve Ditko. All right. Number 2, lose my number. All right, Douglas.
I think it was Danny Fingeroff too. I think you emailed.
Danny Fingeroff. Yeah,
Brad was so crestfallen, and I mean, like Brad was like posting it like on like some kind of Steve Ditko Facebook page. Like there's like some kind of secret society where people like worship Ditko in secret.
I'm a member.
and Brad is like, I am so in the weeds right now on these pictures, and they're like, no, dude, it's not Steve Ditko. And I think even Eric Larson at one point commented and said, dude, no, it's not. But Brad was just so convinced this is Steve Ditko because I found it and I need it to be.
That's so true.
He was so desperate for it to be Steve Ditko. He wanted it so
It was
bad.
one of the most surreal things, and I kept telling Brad, don't set yourself up for this. This is not Steve Ditko. No, it is, man. It is. I feel it. I feel it in my bones. Oh, okay. All right. Well.
It's a soul-crushing disappointment when he finally came to the realization that it wasn't Ditko. Was just hilarious and sad at the same time.
I right-clicked those pictures saved as. Every now and then I'm going through my desktop and pictures. I'm like, oh, it's the time I thought it was Steve Ditko with the guy holding the beer.
Gotta post that in the forums.
Oh, I should. I still have that picture.
And just do the time that I thought this was Steve Ditko and it wasn't.
Let's see, real quick. The Devil Breaker put up that Marvel has released a statement on Twitter. Quote, today the Marvel family mourns the loss of Steve Ditko. Steve transformed the industry in the Marvel Universe, and his legacy will never be forgotten. Our thoughts are with his family, loved ones, and his fans during this sad time. So Marvel is put out a release on that. We had final thoughts from Mike. JR, your final thoughts on the Ditko podcast.
Well, I think I've said about everything I could say, but I was looking at an artist by the name of Patch Zerker. I'm not really familiar with him, but he's got a couple of tweets that I liked. He co-created, and this is what he's saying, he co-created Spider-Man, which will be remembered as significant as Doyle creating Sherlock Holmes or Fleming creating James Bond. Spider-Man may outlast them both. Kind of like that as a sign-off.
Yeah, that was good. All right, George, final thoughts, sir.
Number one, this has been a special edition of Ditko News.
We got it in. Yeah.
A very subdued Ditko News. Not the end of Ditko News, because I'm sure we'll continue finding out things.
No doubt.
But also, I was going to say originally that, because somebody, I guess it was our last caller, Action Dude or whoever it was. Action Gamer had said, well, he had mentioned, about how sad and everything it was. And my initial reaction was, dude was 90.
But even you still want to be 91. So
do you? I mean, listen. I've known old people who were pissed off because everyone they knew was dead, and they still woke up the next day. Like they kept waking up every day.
Yeah.
No. So, on the one hand, I had originally, thought about it, and you're like, okay, well, this is what I'll say at the close is like, would you live 90 years? Say, congrats, hats off to you. I mean, good job. It's, I mean, you'll obviously the world will miss these people, but at the same time, it's not like they're struck down like in the prime of life or anything. But I started thinking about that, and I was like, well, I'll say that. And I've said it before, but here's the thing. I can't really say that because, and we've brought this up a minute ago, it's like eventually one day we'll have to do this for Stan Lee, and I will be a 4-alarm mess.
Yeah.
I really will be. And I won't care that the dude is like 95. It won't register. I'll be like, dude, what do I, it's like when like David Bowie and Prince died within like 10 days of one another. And I'm like, what do I even do now? Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, my initial reaction to this was, dude was 90. Good on him. Don't be depressed about this. But at the same time, I'm like, I can't say that because when it happens with Stan, I'll be a wreck. So I can't really say that.
The dichotomy between Stan and Steve is I think JR said it earlier, that they're the exact opposite of each other.
Well, Steve is like, somebody like you heard about from a friend of a friend of a friend. Stan Lee is like a member of the family.
Right. I mean, the mystery wrapped in an enigma.
Yeah.
Some of it was by his own design. Some of it, I think, was just because people, just the curiosity aspect is what made him, I think, more interesting than I think he ever thought himself as. I think he strikes me as a guy that was just very much a product of his era. He was a guy that lived through the Depression and lived through World War II, and he was just happy, being left alone and doing his own thing. I think none of us would be sitting here at this at our desks today without him. So we have to acknowledge that he is a driving force for this podcast. But it is sad, that we didn't get more of him directly from him. But I think that if Brad had ever got the interview,
oh yeah, that was the big get. I always wanted that one.
But I think if Brad ever got the interview, though, I think there would be a little. I hate to say that. I think there'd be a little disappointment. Because I think
I don't think it would be a good interview. I don't think he would give much as evidenced.
Yeah, I think it would be you would have a hard time getting him to talk. I think there's so many, and like even Neil Gaiman and all those guys that were doing the In Search of. Steve Ditko. I think that we all have this like built up in our minds that he was just gonna, open the door and offer us a cup of tea and start talking about his time at Marvel and DC, and that just never was gonna